Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first Performing and Visual Arts Divisional Seminar of the year. It is our pleasure to have you all here. Our speaker today is Dr. Radhika Joshi. Dr. Radhika Joshi is an accomplished artist in the field of Hindustani classical music, hailing from the prestigious Jaipur-Atrauli Gharana. Under the guidance of Pandit Raghunandan Panshikar, a disciple of the legendary Kishori Amonkar, Radhika has diligently honed her vocal prowess. She has also explored semi-classical forms such as Thumri, Kajri, Hori and Dadra under the esteemed Padma Bhushan Srimati Girija Devi. In the recent years, she has graced numerous prestigious music festivals both in India and abroad, including venues such as Ustad Abdul Karim Khan Smriti Samiti, Deval Club and Dadar Matunga Cultural Center. Radhika is a passionate educator and advocate for preserving the rich tradition of Hindustani music. During her time in United States, she conducted lecture demonstrations on Indian classical music in universities and museums. Furthermore, she is the founder of Jaipur Gunijankhana, an archive in Pune dedicated to the documentation and preservation of Hindustani music, with a particular focus on Jaipur-Atrauli Gharana. In addition to her musical achievements, Radhika holds a Master's in Economics from Tufts University, Boston, and a PhD in Economics from the Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. Radhika's presentation today will highlight contemporary social issues through a combination of traditional and self-composed bandishes. Accompanying her today on tabla, we have Jajvalya Shukla and on harmonium Shishir Bhatt. Please join me in welcoming Radhika Joshi.
Hello, yes. Thank you very much. And I would like to begin first by thanking Ahmedabad University and the department for inviting me here today. It is a very special presentation for me because the topic that I'm going to be talking about is a very new challenge that I have taken upon myself. And that is to bring in contemporary issues within the realm of Khayal Sangeet. So, as you may all know, most of the text in Khayal compositions are centered around very limited themes or topics. So there is a lot of description of nature. There are a lot of texts that speak of different deities in terms of worship in different religions, different gods and goddesses. And then the third is for, I don't know what reason, but there is a lot of Saas and Nanadiya bashing that goes on in our compositions, where, you know, Jhara Jhara Mare Muri Saas and Nanadiya and Payala Baje, and, you know, I'm not able to meet my lover because my Nanad and Saas are prohibiting me from doing so. And we've been singing these, teaching these compositions for decades together without really paying too much attention to the words. Now, part of the reason why these bandishes have still been very popular, I think, is because in Khayal Gayaki, it is said, or it is believed, that the Gayaki is Swar Pradhan and not Shabda Pradhan, which means that it is through the notes of the rag that we are trying to create a mood and convey a particular emotion. And so words are often it's written that they are mere pegs to hang your notes on. So we're not really delivering lyrical content, but we are delivering a particular emotion through the intensity of the notes, Shruti. Hence we have Shruti Gayan, and exact sur sadhana, being able to apply that exact note is so important in our tradition, because the rag is built on the note and not the lyrical content, so to say. And then there are also instances of Pandit Bhimsen Joshi singing his own address for the very same reason ki, you know, jo bhi hai, koi to shabd lete hai, but main rag so and so ga raha hu. So that's one way of thinking about it, and that the tradition, of course, follows through with the gaiki that comes from rags, and this is not about questioning the tradition per se. But what I feel personally is that art has to be a reflection of the society that we all live in some way or the other. And so, for a lot of people who are not into classical music in that particular depth, what we typically say is, उन्होंने येरी आली पिया बिना गाया यमन में, या उन्होंने कवन बटरिया गाया बिलावल में. So it is really, we associate a particular composition first with the words. When we teach students, I am often asked by kids, what does this mean? And Ratya Katata Tare Gina Gina to a student is something I often don't want to teach when I'm teaching my children, my students. And that led me to think about what if we tried to bring in topics that are more contemporary, and that for people who are not deeply into classical music, for those who don't understand the difference between Devgiri Bilawal, Kukub Bilawal, this Bilawal, that Bilawal, or who are not into Kannada ke prakar or so heavily into classical music, but enjoy the feel of music, maybe being able to associate with the lyrical content is one way to sort of get into the world of classical music. And then, of course, there's a whole beautiful world there, which exists. So this is not to sort of question that or delineate from that tradition that we all come from. So that's what led me to think about how we could work on the lyrical content of Hindustani music. So one part of the work that I have done is actually for children. And I have a book called Phulwari Geeton Ki, which I released for children, which has songs based on topics that are children-centric. So there's a song on mother, there is a song on the train, there's a song on sunrise, there's a song on Gandhi Jayanti. And these are in the 10th arts of Hindustani music. And I tried to introduce children to classical music through these. So they're not nursery rhymes or jingles, they are thought-based songs. And through them, I'm hoping children will come to Rag Sangeet. This Khayal Manthan is my attempt to bring social issues into the realm of Khayal Sangeet in terms of Madhyalay and Drut compositions. Some of these I have composed. Some of these have been composed by my contemporaries when we all got together and we thought that this is something that we all should be working on. And in some cases, lyrics have been borrowed from other poets. In some cases, we've written them ourselves. So that is what is a brief introduction to what I have for you today. This work that I have done has been supported by Sumanasa Foundation. This is a foundation that is led by T.M. Krishna. And I received the grant a year ago to take this work forward. And the outcome of the grant was that I would create work that I would put out in the public domain, which is based on the line of thought that I just spoke about. So I have a series that I have been releasing called Mere Khayal Se, in which every week for the past 5 weeks, I have been sharing a few compositions, and I will be sharing a few in the coming weeks to go. So if you're interested, you can check that out. That's Mere Khayal Se. And that brings me to today's first composition. So I'm going to be singing and talking a bit to speak to you about my motivation of why I went about this. And it would be lovely to have your feedback, suggestions, and comments at the end of the presentation. So the first composition that I would like to present to you is a poem written by a poet, the late Mangalesh Dabralji. He was a journalist who passed away during COVID, but a very prolific writer. And through his words, he tried to give a voice to the voiceless. So there are many different poems that he has written where he was trying to express pain and suffering of different marginalized communities in India without making it sound too negative. But yet at the same time giving them a representation in the literature that he was writing. So one particular poem that I really liked that he has written is this. भारी मन से चले गए हम तज कर पुरखों का घर बार पीछे मिट्टी घसक रही है, गिरती पत्थरों की बौछार। थोड़ा मुड़कर देखो भाई भाई, कैसे बंद हो रहे हैं द्वार, उनके पीछे छूट गया है एक एक कोठार. So when I first read these lines, a scene that came in front of my eyes was that of a sea of people at the break of dawn walking away from their ancestral homes. And why they have to leave is not really specified in the text either. It may be a natural disaster, it may be war, it may be social disharmony. But the pain and suffering of loss is what was beautifully expressed in these lines. And when I read these, I felt that a Jod rag, which is a combination of two or more rags, would best be able to capture the spectrum of emotions a person goes through when you're forced to leave. Because for somebody to have to leave their ancestral home would be not just sad, not just angry, not just upset, but a lot of different emotions. Plus, somewhere there would be some hope or positivity at the prospect of being able to start afresh. And so the rag that I thought was most appropriate, or that I felt like expressing these lines in, is a rag called Rag Lalat Vibhas. This is a rag composed by Gana Saraswati Kishori Amunkar ji. And it's a combination of two different morning melodies. So this is the composition that I have composed. And like I mentioned earlier, when I was reading about Mangalesh Dabralji and his attempt to sort of bring in a little bit of optimism, I thought that as a addition or as a complement to this composition, I wrote a Drut Bandish myself, which is in Drut Ektal, which I have composed. So I guess I will come to this slide when I sing it, but I will be presenting to you Rag Lalat Vibhas to begin with. में ये थोड़ा इंक्रीज कर सकते हैं, मॉनिटर में तानपुरा इंक्रीज कर सकते हैं. भारी मन से चले गए हम, भारी मन से चले गए हम, भारी मन से चले गए हम, तज कर पुरखों का घर बार, तज कर पुरखों का घर बार, पीछे मिट्टी धस कर रही है, पीछे मिट्टी धस कर रही है, गिरती पत्थर की बौछार, भारी मन से चले गए हम, भारी मन से चले गए। भारी मन से चले भारी मन, भारी मन, भारी मन से चले गए मन से चले मन से चले गए हम, हमारे मन से चले। अब भोर भई, अब भोर भई, अब भोर भई, अब भोर भई, अब भोर भई। हम लेते नहीं बाट, हम लेते नहीं बाट, हुई है नई प्रभात, हुई है नई प्रभात, अब भोर भई। छूट गया सब, छूट गया सब, छूट गया सब, बिखर गई जीवनी, बिखर गई जीवनी, अपनी जोत जलाए है रखनी, अब भोर भई, अब भोर भई। अब भोर भई, अब भोर भई। हम लेते नहीं बाट, हम लेते नहीं बाट, हुई है नई प्रभात, हुई है नई प्रभात, अब भोर भई, अब अब भोर भई, अब 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 भोर भई, So when we were composing these compositions, one option was to use lyrics that others had written, like the one I just did with Mangalesh ji's poem. The challenge there is that we are used to listening to Hindustani music compositions in a particular dialect. Mostly they are Avdi or, and we're used to having words which are easy to sing. Kahilava, Bhailava, those kind of words can be stretched easily when we are doing Akar. So what I was really keen upon was that it shouldn't be a presentation of a song. I should be able to sing my rag through the bandish that I would be singing. And that is where the challenge really is, because the moment I start doing alaps, it shouldn't sound disjoint. So in the next composition, which I will be presenting, is on the issue of adoption. So, my next slide. Um, so adoption again is a phenomenon that elicits very different reactions from people in society. And despite having so many mythological characters who are in some way adopted, there are a lot of historical references to adoption in India, in the cultural context that we are all in. Yet, in mainstream society, adoption is still looked upon not as mainstream, or not with the acceptance that I personally feel we should look at it. And it's an issue which I personally feel very strongly about. So, there are a few beautiful girls that I know and beautiful mothers in my life whose relationship I had the fortune of observing. And based on their relationship, this is what I wrote. मैं हूँ परी, एक बेटी दो माँओं की, माँ के कोख से माई के हृदय में जा बसी. मैं कौन थी, कहाँ से आई, ये बात सबने पूछी, बस एक थी माई जो मेरी खुशियों में समाई. I composed this in Rag Yaman Kalyan. Yaman is a very pleasant melody. It is a melody which I think reaches each and every one of us. And so that's why I chose Rag Yaman. Turned out to be Yaman Kalyan as I was composing. And actually, when I was singing this composition a few months back, somebody else came and pointed to me that the difference between Yaman and Yaman Kalyan, by the way, is the use of both madhyams in Yaman Kalyan, Ma Shuddha and Ma Tivra in Yaman Kalyan, versus just one Ma in Rag Yaman. And someone from the audience came and asked me whether I had chosen Yaman Kalyan because, like there are two mothers, there are two madhyams. That is not what I had intended, but it was a beautiful thought. So here is the bandish on adoption in Rag Yaman Kalyan. मैं हूँ परी मैं हूँ परी मैं हूँ परी एक बेटी दो माँओं की मैं हूँ परी एक बेटी दो माँओं की मैं हूँ परी माँ की कोख से मायके हृदय में जा बसी मैं हूँ परी एक बेटी दो माँओं की मैं हूँ परी मैं हूँ परी मैं हूँ परी So along the lines of identity, which is the issue in some way in adoption, there was another composition that I came across, which is on the issue of gender identity. And although this is not something that is a new phenomenon, it's probably come to mainstream debate perhaps in more recent times, where people have become more vocal about their gender and their identity through gender. And for centuries, people or individuals have been there's an expectation by society for individuals to conform to certain gender norms. And for those who don't fit into a category, so to say, they've been ridiculed, they've been shamed, they have been criticized. And so this is a composition by a friend of mine, Dr. Achintya Prahlad, who himself is a very good, accomplished vocalist and a composer. And he composed this beautiful composition. I really liked the lyrics of what he had written. The lyrics are up there for you. What caught my eye really was the use of the word payal. And like I said in the beginning, most of the compositions in Hindustani music, or many of the compositions, refer to this word payaliya, or the ghungroos. You know, payaliya jhanakara muri, payaliya jhanana, jhanana payaliya. And they're usually anklets that a woman wears, and it's sort of a sign of, her presence being felt by, or her presence being noticed, and she being caught while she's escaping or running or going to meet somebody. Here, Achintya has used the same reference to payal or jhananana in a very different way. So here he talks about an individual who is neither a male, neither a female, or perhaps both, gender fluid, doesn't matter really. He's celebrating the spirit of being human. Being a beautiful human and being confident and being proud of just being a beautiful human who has the gait of an elephant, which is what he describes in the composition. So Achintya has composed this in Rag Harikhamboji, which is a rag in the Carnatic tradition. But this is his interpretation of Rag Harikhamboji in the Hindustani tradition. झनन झनन पायलिया झनन झनन पायलिया झनन झनन पायलिया झनन झनन पायलिया बाट चलत बाजे बाट चलत बाजे बन गज की बन गज की अभय चाल गगन बसर साजे झनन झनन पायलिया झनन झनन पायलिया बाट चलत बाजे बाट चलत बाजे बन गज की बन गज की अभय चाल गगन बसन साजे झनन झनन पायलिया कब हूँ कब हूँ नारी, कब हूँ नर, कब हूँ नारी, कब हूँ नर, कब हूँ नारी, कब हूँ नर। कब हूँ नारी, कब हूँ नर, कब हूँ नारी, कब हूँ नर। नाही नारी, नाही नर, नाही नारी, नाही नर। मानुष यह अति सुंदर, मानुष यह अति सुंदर, मानुष यह अति सुंदर। रंग रंगीलो साजे, जनन जनन पायलिया, जनन जनन पायलिया। बाट चलत बाजे, बाट चलत बाजे। बन गज की अभय चाल, बन गज की अभय चाल। गगन बसन साजे, जनन जनन पायलिया। रे रे गा मरे ने सा, जनन जनन। रे ग म प, ग म ध प रे द प, ध म ग म रे नि सा, जनन जनन पायलिया। धनि सा रे ग म रे ने द सा, जनन जनन पायलिया। जनन ने द नि सा, द नि रे ने सा, द नि सा ग म रे ने सा, ग म प, ग म ध प रे द प म ग, जनन जनन पायलिया। सा रे ध नि रे रे सा रे ध नि सा रे ध प म प ध प म ग रे सा, जनन ग म प ध प म म प ध नि ध प म प ध, ध नि रे सा नि सा म ग रे सा नि सा रे रे सा नि ध नि सा नि ध प ध सा नि ध प म प ध प म प म ग रे सा नि सा, जनन जनन पायलिया। जनन कब हूँ नारी, कब हूँ नर, कब So I have two more compositions, and I would really like to hear your feedback about this whole effort. So I'm going to end ahead of time, before 90 minutes, so that I get some time to hear all of you as well. Um, so after identity, the next issue that I really wanted to speak about was the issue of environmental protection and environmental awareness. So there were a couple of compositions. There was one composition which I had actually composed, which is really dear to me. That was on the bugyals. So I don't know if you know what the bugyals are. They are meadows in the Himalayas. So normally people associate Himalayas with mountains and hilly areas. But bugyals are meadows that are high up in the altitude. So last year when we went trekking to a place called Daira Bugyal, at the summit there was a board written by the Uttarakhand government that said, "Bugyal जड़ी बूटियों का भंडार, जीवन रक्षा का आधार, यही है पृथ्वी का श्रृंगार, इसे ना जाने दो बेकार." I read those 4 lines and they just stayed with me. और फिर ट्रैक हो गया, वापस आ गए, and these 4 lines were still in my head somewhere. So I really wanted to express those lines, and so I composed a bandish in Rag Vrindavani Sarang. In the interest of time, I'm not going to present that today, but it is on the YouTube Mere Khayal Se series that I have put out. So if you are interested, do listen to that in Vrindavani Sarang. But what I have for you today is along similar lines is a composition on river conservation. And this is again by another friend of mine, Dr. Nishad Matange, who is a microbiologist in ISER Pune, but is also a very accomplished vocalist of the Jaipur-Atrauli Gharana. He's a disciple of Dr. Ashwini Bhide. And he composed this bandish on river conservation. And I actually had presented this bandish in the Pune river revival protest. So there were a few people who were protesting against what the municipal corporation was doing to sort of clean the rivers, and there was a lot of construction along the banks of the rivers which was not ecologically sustainable according to a few experts, and so there was a protest. And so I sang this composition there. And somewhere I felt that our music, and what I said in the beginning about art reflecting society and art being a part of contemporary society, I felt this was a very important initiative as an artist for me to be able to take my music to raise awareness about a social issue that I also feel very passionately about. And we got a lot of nice, I feel somewhere compositions that I am singing should reach people and create some sort of awareness and dialogue regarding these many different issues that we as a society are facing today. So this bandish is in Rag Triveni. And interestingly, Triveni, as the name suggests, is a confluence of 3 different rags: Rag Shri, Rag Vibhas, and Rag Jait. And the traditional composition in this rag is also on rivers, on the 3 rivers, Triveni, Kalindi, Saraswati. That's the paramparic composition though hai. The words of that are Triveni, Kalindi, Saraswati, Aruna Barani, Ujjwala Badani, Tu Hi Ganga, Veni Prakasha Turanga, Khanjana Meela Liye Sanga. So this is in Vilambit Rupak. That was the traditional composition. And Nishad composed the Drut as a complement to this composition. And his motivation was that somewhere, just as the way the river flows, the tradition must also flow. And because there was a Vilambit composition, उसी परंपरा को आगे लेके, उसी घरानेदार बंदिश को आगे लेके, उसी राग में, he has composed this bandish in Rag Triveni. It's a beautiful composition. I'll just sing the outline for you. And there's another composition I want to end with before we open for dialogue. बहत प्रवाह तेरो बहत प्रवाह तेरो बहत प्रवाह तेरो जो दिस में उत खेलत है खुशहाली बहत प्रवाह तेरो बहत प्रवाह तेरो जो दिस में उत खेलत है खुशहाली बहत प्रवाह तेरो बहत तू तरंगिणी अमृत वाहिनी तू तरंगिणी अमृत वाहिनी गोदा गंगा कृष्णा कावेरी नर्मदा तेरो ही जैसे हो जीवन को विस्तार बहत प्रवाह तेरो बहत बहत प्रवाह बहत प्रवाह बहत प्रवाह तेरो बहत प्रवाह तेरो जो दिस में उत खेलत है खुशहाली बहत प्रवाह बहत प्रवाह बहत प्रवाह तेरो So, as is customary in the Khayal tradition, I will end with Rag Bhairavi. So this is a composition that has been written by a friend of mine, Sunaina Kachru. She is a Kashmiri poet based in Boston. And this is on the issue of border disputes. अगर हम सरहदों पर पेड़ उगाते तो क्या हम सायों पर बांध बनाते, फूल जो खिलते किसको मिलते, दरगाह जाते या मंदिर चढ़ते. I really, I mean, the lyrics mean a lot, and the concept itself was so beautiful. But it was hard for me to fit this in the meter of a khayal composition because the lyrics are long. There's a lot. The content is dense. There's a lot that is being said in these words. And so I've composed this as a dadra, but it is a ghazal numa dadra. Again, so that I can do a little more justice to the words. So I will end today's presentation with this dadra in Bhairavi, and my heartfelt gratitude again to the department at AU and to my accompanists Shishir Bhai and Jajavla Bhai ji for coming here. Bhairavi. अगर हम सरहदों पर पेड़ उगाते, अगर हम सरहदों पर पेड़ उगाते, अगर हम सरहदों पर पेड़ उगाते, तो क्या हम सायों पर भी बांध बनाते, तो क्या हम सायों पर भी बांध बनाते. जब जब गाती किसको बहकाती कोयल की कोयल की कूक अगर उस पार जाती तो क्या उसे भी सजा मिलती तो क्या उसे भी सजा मिलती अगर हम सरहदों पर पेड़ उगाते अगर हम सरहदों पर पेड़ उगाते दरिया गए मन मानी करता बाह पसरता झर झर झरता दरिया गए मन मानी करता बाह पसरता झर झर झरता पानी बेहिसाब जो बहता एकाएक किससे कहता एकाएक किससे कहता अगर हम सरहदों पर पेड़ उगाते अगर हम सरहदों पर पेड़ उगाते अगर हम सरहदों पर पेड़ उगाते तो क्या हम सा So if anybody has any comments, questions, suggestions, I would be happy to take them. बिल्कुल रिवर मिसमैनेजमेंट की जी बिल्कुल माइक लेना है
हेलो। हाँ, जैसे इन्होंने बस एक ही लाइन लिखी थी उसमें कि बांजन को पुत्र दे, पुत्री क्यों नहीं।
अरे वाह
तो वो बहुत छू जाने
वाह
जस्ट इनका प्रोग्राम शुरू हुआ उससे पहले ही उनसे बात कर रहे, तो आपके जो ये प्रयोग हैं बहुत ही रिलेवेंट है। थैंक यू मैम।
थैंक यू सो
राधिका जी बहुत ही अच्छा रहा, क्या बात है जैसे हम बोलते हैं सुनने का बहुत आनंद मिला। आपके प्रयोग भी बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग है। मेरी हिंदी बहुत बुरी है तो थोड़ा इंग्लिश भी मिक्स करूँगा। I think what you are trying to attempt is really very interesting and a different direction. And actually we can talk about it for I think several hours, but we won't do it now. I have one or two questions.
Yeah.
You talked earlier about स्वर प्रधान and शब्द प्रधान, उसी डायरेक्शन में आगे चले। तो एक तो आप ट्रेडिशनल वंदिशेस भी गाती हैं और ये कंटेम्पररी भी गाती हैं। तो आई वुड जस्ट लाइक टू नो कि आपने कोई कॉन्सर्ट में इन दोनों एस्पेक्ट्स को मिक्स किया है कि नहीं?
नॉट येट
मेरा प्रश्न ये संदर्भ में ऐसा है कि जैसे हर एक आदमी, हर एक संगीतकार अलग अलग कहता है जब उनको पूछो कि आप राग गा रहे हो तो क्या कर रहे हो। कोशिश है, बहुत लोग ऐसे कहते हैं कि हम राग को आह्वान दे रहे हैं कि आप प्रकट होइए, क्योंकि अल्टीमेटली राग प्रकट होता है अपने कार्य से, वही सबसे बड़ा रिवॉर्ड है। भी प्रकट करने के लिए आप सुरों का ज़्यादा इस्तेमाल करते हैं। अभी आप किसी एक सीक्वेंस में, मतलब किसी एक कॉन्सर्ट में मान लीजिए कि आप एक पारंपरिक बंदिश आपने ली, then you take a contemporary theme with contemporary lyrics also, and then you take a tarana for example. तो पहले में आपका पारंपरिक शब्द प्रयोग आया, भाषा आई, लैंग्वेज आई, टेक्स्ट आई, स्टोरी आई, स्टोरी लाइन आई। दूसरे में वो पूरा बदल गया और तीसरे में वो स्टोरी लाइन और ये सब चला गया, फिर भी राग रहता है कि नहीं। तो इट माइट बी अ वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग
कॉन्ट्रडिक्शन इन,
हाँ, मतलब समझने के लिए। और जो आपको सीरियसली सुन रहे हैं ना, आपका अनुभव क्या होता है, इट इज मोस्ट इम्पोर्टेंट। कि आपको लगा कि इन तीनों में से सिमिलर डिग्री में राग प्रकट हुआ कि कुछ कम ज्यादा हुआ, और अच्छे सुनने वालों को भी उनका भी आप रिस्पॉन्स गेज कर सकते हैं कि क्या लगता है कि ये करने से
फोकस
उतना
आपका
हुआ कि नहीं। आई एम नॉट सेइंग हुआ कि नहीं, ये एक प्रश्न है।
अंडरस्टूड। नहीं, दैट्स अ वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग।
अभी आज आपने जो किया पूरा एक्सपेरिमेंटली था, तो वो एक मुझे ऐसा
मतलब आई एम स्टिल धीरे-धीरे मेकिंग।
आई थिंक व्हाट यू आर ट्राइंग फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल इज वेरी करेजियस, नोबडी डज इट, सो यू मस्ट बी कांग्रेचुलेटेड फॉर दैट। बहुत मुश्किल काम है।
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल,
बहुत चैलेंजिंग। आप बार-बार वही वर्ड यूज कर रहे हैं कि वो एक तुम्हारे लिए चैलेंज जो ले रहे हैं। तो बट ऐसा भी एक मुझे एक ऐसी ख्याल आया कि इफ यू कैन ट्राई एंड सी दिस एंड देन इवैल्यूएट फॉर योरसेल्फ। बिल्कुल, कि पुराने में जो होता था वो यहाँ पे हुआ कि नहीं। मैं जानता नहीं हूँ कि हो रहा है कि नहीं।
एब्सोल्युटली,
वो भी एक हो सकता है।
आई थिंक यमन में जो यमन की बंदिश थी, दैट वुड बी द बेस्ट, बिकॉज यमन इज सच अ प्रोलिफिक राग। मतलब उसमें ख्याल, विलंबित सब हो चुका है, ब्रॉड स्पेक्ट्रम। सो दैट वुड बी अ ग्रेट एक्सपेरिमेंट, जैसे आप कह रहे हो, टू गेज की एक पारंपरिक यमन का
हाँ, और
composition.
नए के साथ फिर आप ही खुद एक्सपीरियंस, आपका एक्सपीरियंस रियली मैटर्स बिकॉज यू आर ट्राइंग समथिंग. सो
Right.
आपको क्या एक्सपीरियंस होता है
Sure, I will do that and-
कंटेम्पररी में भी ये हुआ कि नहीं, और अच्छे सुनने वाले से भी, और पूरी लैंग्वेज भी निकाल दो. देखो हम लोग, मैं तो इंस्ट्रूमेंटलिस्ट हूँ,
Yes.
हमारे पास वो है ही नहीं
Yes.
शब्द, तो हमको तो इसी से स्ट्रगल करनी पड़ती है. इसके लिए ये ख्याल है.
बिल्कुल.
बट आई थिंक
यहाँ पर जो विराजमान अपने जो जितने उपस्थित ऑडियंस है, इन्होंने पोइट्री को एंजॉय किया या मेलोडी या राग को एंजॉय किया? आप थोड़ा सा बताइए. मेलोडी को एंजॉय किया, राग को एंजॉय किया या पोइट्री को एंजॉय किया? आपने क्या समझा? आप किस उसके असर में रहे?
प्रणाम. मेरा नाम प्राची है. I would like to mention two things, that this is, as everybody said, this is a very courageous, very different kind of, and thank you for redeeming that lyric of the traditional classical music of Piya bin nahi avat chain. Like for, I don't know for how many ages we have been listening to those lyrics where, you know, it's that patriarchal gaze is there, and all the composers are mostly males, like from Sadarang Adarang to Amir Khusro and to the modern musicians. Very rarely females have, you know, composed kind of thing. So that is a great thing, that you are redeeming it and you are taking it to the kind of, you know, the social consciousness and issues. That's a beautiful thing. But again, if you look into the classical music, the objective of classical music, it is actually to enhance, as he mentioned, enhance the melodic and rhythmic seed. And you are not actually, you are not focusing, you are not oriented towards the kind of lyrics. You know, lyrics are there to as the supportive kind of a material, because rag or tal gana ye hamara kaam hai, right? So how do you, this dichotomy, this, you know, this kind of double-edged sword, how do you deal with that? That is my thing. And again, when we were listening to you, I feel that we were more moved by the kind of melodic rendition and your voice and your singing, and then probably the words were coming after your beautiful melodic, you know, expansion. So again, if the words are becoming secondary to your presentation, then how do you deal this kind of dichotomy? That is.
In my mind, when I sing a Vilambit, in तीन ताल विलंबित, जैसे जयपुर घराने की हमारी तालीम है, at that point I am thinking only about the rag, where जैसे आप बोलते हैं कि किसी राग का एक कैनवस करना है हमको, which is why I have never attempted to do this in a विलंबित, क्योंकि विलंबित में मेरा वो फोकस ही नहीं है. मैं सिर्फ मुखड़ा गा रही हूँ कि मो मन लगन लागी, प्रथम सुर साधे, उतना ही गा रही हूँ मैं. बाकी आई डोंट इवन लाइक, एक बार गा के छोड़ दिया. उसके हमारी गायकी भी वैसे नहीं. ग्वालियर घराने में जैसे यू सिंग द होल लिरिक्स एंड दे आर सॉर्ट ऑफ हैमर्ड टू द लिसनर. हम लोग एक बार गा के छोड़ देते हैं फॉर द मोस्ट पार्ट. सो आई थिंक व्हेन आई एम सिंगिंग अ विलंबित, दैट इज़ व्हेन आई एम थिंकिंग अबाउट निषाद से मैं क्या मूड क्रिएट करूँगी, निषाद का संवाद गंधार से कैसे होगा, उससे भाव कैसे मैं प्रकट करूँगी. बट व्हेन आई हैव ऑलवेज आस्क्ड माई सेल्फ एंड बीन डिससैटिस्फाइड कि मैं द्रुत गाती हूँ तब करती क्या हूँ, बिकॉज आई वॉजंट एबल टू आंसर दैट क्वेश्चन टू माई सेल्फ. कि विलंबित में राग खड़ा करने की कोशिश हुई मेरी विलंबित में, अब मैं द्रुत में आ गई. नाउ अपार्ट फ्रॉम इम्प्रेसिंग द लिसनर्स विथ द तान्स, दैट धड़ 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 तान जितने भी मैंने रटे हो या वट एवर, आई मीन क्लाइमैक्स ये करने के लिए. But Drut has to have something more than that, is what I always felt. And invariably the Drut had the most uninteresting lyrics in whatever I was repertoire that I have been singing all these days that I was taught. So whatever explorations that I have been doing in the lyrical aspect have only been in Madhyala and Drut compositions. So that's the way I think I would address this, कि विलंबित is my foray जहाँ के पे मुझे राग खड़ा करना है. एंड द्रुत में उस बंधे उस क्रिएशन में मैंने जहाँ राग ऑलरेडी बांधा है आधे घंटे में, उसको लिरिकली एक स्टेप ऐड करूँगी, इज़ व्हाट आई एम ट्राइंग. I think she's been, waiting for him.
Thank you so much, Radhika ji. This was phenomenal. And actually, I had a comment and a question which is in line with what is being discussed also right now. And जो सवाल भी पूछा गया कि आपने क्या enjoy किया, melody enjoy किया या poetry enjoy किया. तो actually, your work and also my own interest made me think about बोलबाट जो होता है. If we think of it as a conceptual lens, क्योंकि बोलबाट में क्या होता है, you have the words but it is the musical meaning out of improvisation, out of actually rendering it musically, that the word almost it explodes. Then you don't know कि sound है के word है और meaning कहाँ से हो रहा है. There's a kind of a mixing that happens, है ना. And I feel like especially in the last composition, the border dispute one, where you took a break from the rhythm, where it is just the voice, because then your voice becomes like almost at the border of speech and song.
Right.
You
So
know,
that's where the
so
lyrics reach.
Exactly.
more.
And so when in so many different layers you're engaging the idea of border by Jod Rag pehle, then there is the between speech and song, and the lyrics itself is about borders itself. Then you're almost like setting in motion this very complex meaning making. So even if you say ke when you said that Vilambhit mein you are just focused on establishing the rag, my question is, can you really separate word rag from the word? Because the song or the bandish or the word is the carrier, right, of sound and of the patterns of the rag, etc. So I'd just like your thoughts on that.
It's the carrier, na, like you said, but it's not the. It was
But
a
it's like-
means. I mean, जैसे वो
हाँ.
सरोद के through बजा के जो express कर रहे हैं, I could have either done Nomtom Alapi or Akar Yukta Alapi or a word.
Yeah, but when you're singing the sentence, then it's not only a carrier, right? Then it
No, so
becomes,
here
then
there
something
was-
else happens.
Absolutely. Here their focus was कि मैं आपको सरहद दिखाना चाहती थी. I wanted to transport you there. In the Vilambit, when I render a Vilambit, it's more abstract, right? It's more to do with the experience I had with that note, with the Tanpura and the Shruti. That is that experience that I want to convey, not necessarily a koyal and a border and a this and a that. So in that sense, there, when I'm singing Todi, for example, mere Vilambit mein, the word is just a carrier. Mere mane ahu ratere jo tu apano chahe is the bandish. To be honest, it means nothing to me. To be very honest. I mean, but Todi means a lot to me. Todi ke sur मैंने रियाज किए हैं, तो that intensity, वो ऋषभ गंधार, they mean a lot to me.
तो उसका मतलब कि musical meaning is a different language altogether, a different way in which meaning is made, right?
In that case, yes. Here it is juxtaposed. So
Yeah,
here it is
there's
different.
a layering that happens.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think she's been waiting.
My question sort of has two parts, if that's okay. So when you were singing, because of the unique, like the different aspect of it as compared to traditional Khayal Gaiki, it reminded me of this piece that my guru had taught me. And then she told me that she said it was a bandish, and then she taught it to me in Dadra. And I thought that was so interesting, like why I've never done it, but then you kind of finished with it. So that made me wonder, like, what is it about the style of singing that makes Khayal Gaiki? Why? Because technically we could then apply any lyrics, any ghazal, anything and turn it into Khayal Gaiki. So what is the musicality of Khayal? And then my second question goes to say that music has to always evolve, right? So like we've evolved from Drupad to Khayal to today like semi-classical is I suppose the most popular. So in today's generation of Khayal composition, what does that look like? Because as you said at the beginning, there are these three broad categories of what Khayal is written about. And when I learned these bandishes as a child, like I lived in Mumbai, I didn't know what about nature or about any of this stuff. I would have related more to a bandish about buildings and traffic. So what does the future of Khayal composition look like?
So I'll take the second question first. When I started this effort, there was obviously a lot of criticism ki nahi ye to swar pradhan hai, and you know, why are you worrying about the lyrics? Then there were a lot of constructive criticisms, and one which I think I sort of agreed with is that through Khayal, because the root essence of what we are trying to convey through alap, through Hindustani Sangeet, through the swar and shruti is a mood, is ras, essentially, bhav and ras. तो उसमें आप, you can't be too specific about the context, क्योंकि you want to sort of extract from a situation. That's why जो पहले composition थी भारी मन से चले गए हम, आप कहाँ से चले गए, कब चले गए, कहाँ गए, is not of consequence. What was of consequence is the emotion that you experienced as you had to leave. तो वो भाव था मेरे मन में. That context of I had to leave Ukraine because Russia bombed me is not फिर वो गीत बन जाता है. So that was a like comment somebody gave me, and that I agreed. So somebody in Mumbai, Dr. Neela Bhagwat, she composed a bandish on rape, and that composition had no reference. मतलब वैसे देखा जाए तो it was just, अगर मुझे कोई बताता नहीं ना कि she had like this was about rape, I wouldn't have put that together. But उनका ये था कि I just wanted to bring that angst out. So I think somewhere you have to extract from the specifics and focus on the overarching emotion. So that's why building ye wo is not the shouldn't be the future of a khayal composition. Kyunki that part I still agree with ki khayal mein rag, if you want to remain pure to the rag, if you still want to focus on the mood of the rag, then there are certain norms that you have to follow within the gayaki. And so the lyrics have to be short. Ekdam lamba lamba wo verse gaate rahoge to it will turn more of a geet, etc., etc. And I forgot the first question. It was sort of to do with this. At what point is it a khayal? Na? That's a tough. I mean, tough matlab. So generally khayal ke norms kya hote hain ki aap usme raag dikha pao, sargam tan kar pao. The words sometimes jaise Jhanana Jhanana, I had tried it in Dadra also, but eventually I stuck to Ek Tal. So depending on how you decide to implement it, अगर मुझे डांस के साथ गाना होता तो मैं दादरा करके गाती हूँ. I did it once with Mohini at town. But if I wanted to do सरगम तान, मैं एक ताल करके उसको ख्याल में गाऊंगी. So I think it's a little malleable in that sense.